Hafaday and good morning. The Committee on Housing, Utilities, Public Safety, and Homeland Security is now calling this confirmation hearing to order. It is now 9:02 in the morning. For the record, in accordance with 5 GCA, Chapter 8, subsection 8107, notice of this confirmation hearing was provided to senators, stakeholders, and the local media. A 5-day notice was provided on Tuesday, October 30th, 2018, and a 48-hour notice was provided on Monday, November 5th, 2018. The purpose of this confirmation hearing is to receive testimony on the appointment of Mr. Mark Miller, and he will be fulfilling the obligation of Mr. Andrew Niven, which served November 1st to 2013 to October 31st, 2019. So this is just until October 31st, 2019. Today I'd like to call the following who have signed in to give oral testimony: Attorney Anthony Camacho, Michael Pangilinan, and Mr. Miller himself. Also, if you could please, for your record, state your name when you give your testimony and the capacity that you are representing as. Thank you. We'll start with you, Mr. Camacho, Attorney Camacho.
Here we go. Madam Chairwoman, sorry, I'm trying to get my voice okay here. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you on being reelected to another term to the Guam legislature. I'm Anthony R. Camacho. I'm an attorney. I am here testifying in the capacity of the legal counsel for the Public Utilities Commission. And even if I did not hold that position, I would still be here and testify in support of the appointment of Mr. Miller to be a commissioner of the PUC. Mark and I have worked for very many years, and we were both in the Guam National Guard together. He was in the Air National Guard when I was in the Army National Guard. Just prior to this hearing, we were reminiscing about the very first time that I met Mr. Miller, and that was in 1997. When we both were tasked to set up the Camp Lahinta for all the people displaced by Typhoon Paka in Anderson South. And at that time, as I recall, the Air Guard contingent, Mr. Miller included, were all standing around the piping of one of the buildings, and they were all scratching their heads. And I said, "That doesn't look very good." I believe it was Mark or someone else in the group that shot back, "Well, it doesn't look good now, but when we're done, it will." And that's exactly what happened. In very short order, they came up with a plan. They fixed the infrastructure, brought it back to operational condition for Anderson South so that we literally could house thousands of people displaced by that typhoon for, I believe it was at least a month or almost 2 months that they were housed there. But that's not the only time I've seen Mr. Miller at work. I've also seen him do various operations around Anderson Air Force Base as part of the Air National Guard's activities there, in particular with their infrastructure, with their utility systems. Further, in many deployed environments, I have firsthand appreciated Mr. Miller's work. And I've also worked with him in a full-time capacity. For a few years, I was the legal counsel for the, excuse me, the Guam Water Works Authority, the Guam Power Authority, and the CCU. At that time, Mr. Miller was the manager of basically drinking water production, and I worked with him on almost a daily, weekly basis as we tried to get most of Guam's drinking water wells fully operational, fully functional, so that they could continue to provide our people with the drinking water that they needed. And I have to say that Mr. Miller, in all my observations, has proven over and over again to be very hardworking, very detail-oriented, very good at problem solving, very intelligent, very professional, highly articulate, very respectful, very responsible, and I can go on and on. But the two things I have to say about Mr. Miller in particular is he's absolutely loyal to the people of Guam and the United States of America. And I ask you to basically put his extensive practical knowledge of operating utilities safely and efficiently by appointing him as a commissioner for the PUC. Thank you, and I'm prepared to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Attorney Camacho.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I'm Mike Pangilinan, and I've been a PUC commissioner since 2008. I'd also like to join in Attorney Camacho's congratulations of you on your re-election. I know there are a lot of people in Guam, including myself, who are very grateful to you for all the sacrifices that you've made and you continue to make in order to make Guam a better place. And speaking of making Guam a better place, I'm happy to be here this morning to support the nomination of Mark Miller to the PUC. Mark has nearly 30 years of operational experience with GWA. He's formerly Assistant GM and also served as Acting GM and Interim GM at GWA. He's many years of utility experience both on the power and on the water side, because these two agencies have to work together in order to sort of coordinate the services that they provide as utilities. And although Mark retired from GWA a few years ago, prior to his retiring, I had the opportunity to observe Mark as interim GM and acting GM when he appeared before the PUC several times in that capacity to present docket items to the Commission. I was impressed by Mark's depth of knowledge of the operational issues that the utilities face, but I was even more impressed by Mark's ability to explain the very technical material, utility information to the commissioners, such as myself, who do not have an engineering background. It was presented in a way that was easy for us to relate to and understand, which I thought was very, very helpful to us. It would be extremely helpful to the rest of the commissioners if someone with Mark's background was appointed to the commission and if his nomination is confirmed. Because of his firsthand knowledge of the operations of the utilities, and because he's been in a position of actually being in charge of one of the utilities. That would help us, to better understand the issues from the utilities' point of view, but it would also help us to better be able to spot when information that's presented to us is inaccurate or incomplete. So I think that having Mark on the commission would really add to our capabilities as a commission and just make us a more effective commission. But before I close, Madam Chair, I just want to say that my support for Mark's nomination is not based solely on his utility experience. Mark's also my friend. Both of us have teenage daughters that are lifelong friends and go to the same school. So over the years, Mark and I have spent lots of time together, attending ballet classes, attending school events, even going on off-island family trips. Mark's a good guy. He's a devoted family man. He's very, very much willing at any time to help people who need his help. He's not a flashy guy. He doesn't seek the limelight or attention, and those are good qualities for a PUC commissioner. Being a PUC commissioner is not an exciting job. It's not glamorous, but we make decisions that have a direct impact on people's lives. And I think bringing Mark's ability, his experience with the utilities, but his desire to help people is really going to help not only the utilities, but more importantly, the ratepayers of Guam. So I'd strongly support Mark's nomination to the PUC. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Miller?
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Mark Miller. I'm here this morning seeking confirmation to serve as a commissioner on the PUC. I have been a public servant for most of my adult life, In addition to 9 years of active duty military service and 15 years of National Guard service, I also have over 36 years of service with the Guam Water Works Authority. I started at GWA back when it was still a line agency known as the Public Utility Agency of Guam. In 1998, PUAG became the autonomous agency, GWA. When I started in PUAG in 1979, I was hired as a trades helper, which was the lowest entry position at the agency. As a trades helper, I did anything and everything from digging trenches, repairing leaking pipes in and along the roads, performing heavy construction work, and regularly repairing broken pumps and waist-deep raw sewage. And for years, I did this work day or night, depending on the work shift I was on. 36 years later, in 2015, I retired from GWA as the interim general manager. As the GM, I managed all aspects of the organization, including participating in capital improvement projects, development, and presenting a $161 million bond financing package to rating companies interested potential investors. In between those 36 years of service, I went to college at the University of Guam and attained a bachelor's and master's degree. I also studied for and attained all the certifications required of Guam EPA to work in both the water and wastewater operations at GWA. Guam Law, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, Chapter 52, mandates that an operator have these licenses, which range in level from level 1, being the lowest, to level 4, which is the highest. An achievement of a level 4 certification demonstrates a thorough knowledge of the complexity of the systems and their operations. All of my EPA certifications for both the water and wastewater operations are at the grade level 4, the highest. My work experience also proudly includes my 24 years of military service, beginning with my initial service in the United States Air Force until my retirement from the Air National Guard. Because of my knowledge and experience with water and wastewater, I served as the utilities superintendent for most of my tenure with the Guard. In closing, I would like to state that it is my sincere desire to continue public service to our island community. I believe that my passion, experience, and skills in the water, wastewater, and utilities industries are positive contributions, and I would be privileged to bring them to the PUC as a member of that commission. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to come before you today, and I welcome any and all questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Miller. I'd like to thank all of you for coming to give testimony, taking time out of your busy day. I'm very impressed with your dossier, mostly because you started from the bottom of Guam Water Works and you worked your way up, so you understand the difficulty and the challenges of every man and woman that work at GWA from the bottom up, especially your experience with working in the trenches. So I appreciate that. I'm very grateful that we have a qualified person running or to be appointed as part of the PUC board. Not many times, it's very rare that we get someone that has really been specialized in that field in other areas of government. So I strongly support your nomination, and I want to thank you for giving your time up to serve at this board if your nomination should pass. I just have one question, or maybe a couple. GWA has a capital improvements plan. Can you give us, did you have some time to read into their projects that they wanted to do, and perhaps some perspective from your position being the interim general manager, and perhaps some of the way forward? My biggest concern is that they are looking to do a phased development plan, and it's going to cost the people of Guam over $1 billion in bond borrowing or in bonds. And so do you have anything to say on that matter?
Yes, actually, I've been retired about 3 years now. Mm-hmm. And the last time I visited the master plan was about 3 years ago.
Okay.
I know there have been recent upgrades to the master plan, dependent upon basically how has the system reacted to the infrastructure that's been put recently in place, mm-hmm. or that will be put in place. Mm-hmm. That, of course, affects what the CCU and GWA as a whole will petition for funding in the near future. I know that we've borrowed roughly $500 million. We're looking to borrow another $700 million, pay for it over the next 20 years with rate increases every year. And so really coming before this hearing, I focused on that aspect, knowing where I was headed. As for the operations and the CIPs, yes, I have thorough understanding, but my information is 3 years old. But I do intend to revisit the upgraded master plan and certainly share my views with the commission and whoever else that might be interested as to my personal opinions based on work experience of over 30 years there. So my focus has really been on what they will be approaching the commission for in the next, basically, 20 years.
Thank you. Also, there was a concern when we first started this term. You know, I was a new senator, and we realized that GWA was losing large amounts of water unaccounted for due to leakage. And some of the statements were that, you know, because through the CCU and GWA management, is that it was upwards about close to $5 million of leakage of unaccounted for water. And so some of the argument that was placed was that, oh, but that's okay, it's not depleting the aquifer because the water will go right back down into the aquifer. And, you know, I know that's not necessarily the case because, you know, the fact of erosion ongoing and we've lost a lot of green space due to development, a lot of that water goes into the ocean. It does not go right back into our aquifer. And so I hope that you could also be an advocate for that, for better accountability for the loss of water at GWA, because also the question is how much do they spend in power to pump this water that is being wasted or due to leakage, right? So I hope that you would look into that closely. And then I'd like to thank Mr. Pangilinan for his statement saying that you provide a special perspective because of your work experience, and you know how to, you're able to read through the correct information and perhaps misinformation that is presented to the PUC board. And I believe that maybe perhaps this next 4 years are going to be very challenging because of the master plan moving forward and the bond borrowing. My concern is that the people of Guam, that water rates will increase significantly, and I definitely don't want that to happen. We have a very healthy aquifer, according to a lot of our scientists, and so I feel that there has to be a better way to go to the bond and borrow money if need be for this master plan, but also to protect our consumers and our ratepayers by keeping the cost of water down. I don't want to see water cost more than power. And that's one of my concerns, is that one day, perhaps in like the next 6 years, because of the bond borrowing, our water bill will exceed our power bill. And so I hope that you can work with GWA and CCU to protect the ratepayer and ensure that they're doing what is in the best interest of preserving our natural resource, and rather than trying to grow an autonomous agency and develop it from there, but really addressing the issues that our island faces when it comes to water and wastewater treatment. So thank you very much, sir. I'm eager to see the work that you will do, and I put my trust that you will do it for the better of our island, as Attorney Camacho has stated, notably your character and your work ethic when he has participated with you during the time and service of others after Typhoon Paka. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. That exhausts our agenda for today. It is now 9:22, and thank you, everyone. Have a good day. God bless.